We are live.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Police Off the Cuff After Hours. My name is Mark DeMayo. I'm your host. I'm here with my co-host, my partner in all things law enforcement. What's up, Bill Cannon?
I'm so excited. These guests are coming from different parts of the country. Shanahan's in North Carolina. He got off the one train there. He's fucking lost, you know? And Jackson in the bowels of Brooklyn.
That's right. Oh, Brooklyn. Hello, everybody.
All right. So without further ado, let's introduce our guests. We are honored to have them both. One's a repeat customer. We'll introduce him first. He's a retired detective. He's one of the creators of crisis intervention tactics, as well as many other law enforcement training tactics. He's an actor. He's a martial artist. And he's a gentleman, and I'm proud to call him my friend. What's up, James Shanahan? What's up? How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me back. God,
it's an honor to have you, man. I'm very, very excited. So I know so is Bill. And our guest tonight making his first appearance, right, Lieutenant?
Yes, on this show. Yes, indeed.
Okay, he's making our first appearance with us. He's famous, actually. He was the commanding officer of the hostage negotiation team. They started a training program called Talk to Me. He's also he retired now, and he's a TV and film consultant, and he's better known as Gentleman Jack.
Wow.
Gentleman Jack Cambria. What's up, Lieutenant? How are you?
Thank you. Hello to both of you, and so thrilled to be here. And I am fans of all of you. I got to tell you, James. I'll get into James in a little bit, but all of you. Bill, I know many years. I did Bill's other show, correct, Bill?
That's right. Real crime stories. It was great.
Yeah, that was wonderful. And Mark, I've always been a fan of yours. Mark used to come. I got to tell you. So Mark used to come whenever he was in headquarters. He'd come up to my office on the 13th floor just to say hello, knock on the door. Hey, Lou, how you doing? And then he'd like go into his routine, and I'd be like on the floor laughing. And comic relief. It was comic relief for my very hectic days, which were most of the time. And Mark, I don't know if you remember, you told me a story one time. It was a joke, actually. And you say, Lou, how can you tell if there's plainclothes cops driving around in your precinct? So, I don't know. Mark, how do you tell? You remember the joke, Mark?
If you see a black guy, a white guy, a Spanish guy, and a lesbian driving around in a minivan.
That was it. And I still remember that. So fantastic.
That's excellent.
But thank you all. Thank you all for coming.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here.
Yeah, and James, of course.
James, do we have to invite you to say something or what? Because usually we need the duct tape.
I got three of my boyhood heroes right in front of me.
Oh, my God.
Okay? Listen to me. The three of you are the reason why I didn't leave with the 20 and out crowd. Okay? Stuck around for a little while. So.
Well, James, tell our audience who you are and what you do and what your goals in life are.
Well, let's see. It's Thursday, so it's lime jello night here at the home. Okay? I'm in my bathrobe.
What time is lights out?
Oh, 2100.
Do they walk around like a half hour with the pills?
No, you got to see the candy stripe is in this place. It's
they got the little paper cups with the pills. Go get them, or the nurse brings them for you.
Room service, Dad.
Hey, James, is the electronic monitor uncomfortable to wear?
Like anything else.
I can see where this night's going. Yeah, indeed.
Like wearing an ankle holster. Okay.
You got to be careful because they say that most of the what do they call them? The STDs now. They happen in those retirement homes over there.
Okay. Well, hey, man.
Just be careful.
Whammo.
James lives in the Pearl River of North Carolina. He lives in Cary. It's like Coptown, USA.
No, let me ask you something. You were a New Yorker your whole life, right?
Brooklyn and Manhattan, born and raised.
What's it like now living in Carolina?
Well, let me put it to you this way. Down here, Cary is an acronym for containment area for relocated Yankees. Okay.
How long did you work on that joke?
Anybody is from North
That's a good
Carolina.
one.
My block, you might as well call it Yankee Stadium. Okay, so I'm among plenty of New York. There's more New York food down here than in New York, and down here we're not boarded up. So come on down and have at it. It's fun.
Well, congratulations that you made it down there. And Jack, you're in Brooklyn.
Yeah, Bensonhurst, Brooklyn.
You got a townhouse or something?
No, so what I do have,
I mean, a brown house, a brownstone. Brownstone, yeah.
No, I do not. No, I have a house in Brooklyn. None of the wise guys. It's a totally safe neighborhood as a result.
Yeah, they call it Fort Hairspray, right?
There you go, yes. And along those lines, Bill, compliments to you the other night on your show with Tommy Dades. I saw that.
What a great guy, huh?
I'm a big fan of Tommy Dades.
Yeah, me too.
I got to tell you, Tommy Dades once saved me from a civilian complaint, believe it or not. So when I was a sergeant.
It's a great story.
Oh, yeah. I was telling Bill earlier. When I was a sergeant in Truck 6, which is housed in emergency service, of course, I'm talking about, which is housed at the 6A precinct, and we would cover 13 precincts in the Brooklyn South area. Tommy Dades was a squad detective in the 6A squad right next door. So they would always call us, and they were always executing warrants. And this was around the time of the Ralph Dole's killing, which Tommy spoke about the other day. So before there was a big investigation before they trying to identify who might have done it, but there was never any conviction on it, sadly, as my recollection anyway. So we were doing warrants around all the wise guy joints in that area, the social clubs. And this one particular night, they reached out to us. They had a warrant to do a social club of one of the people he spoke about, Billy Three Fingers Cthulhu. I think they called him Three Fingers because he was missing 2 fingers. And we go into the club. It was like Dyker Heights, 66th Street, I think it was, or 64th maybe, and like 11th Avenue, as I recall. So we go in there. They're supposed to all have firearms and all that. So we go in, guns are showing, demonstrating. We had the helmets on, the battering rams, the ballistic vest. And we go in, and there's about maybe a dozen people inside the club. So we, please don't move, get down to the ground, So everybody complied and got down to the ground, except Billy Cthulhu. He's the captain there, so he's not going to be getting down on the knees of cops, So I was closest to him, so I wanted to physically grabbing him and throwing him down to the ground. Everybody gets handcuffed up. Later on, I find out there was $26,000 on the table. They were playing cards. $26,000 on the table. So after the squad and everybody, they cuff everybody up. They take them all down to the station house. What we do, go out to the truck, the big rescue truck that we use. We got out the 10-foot ladder, and we got the flyers wanted for information, $10,000 reward or whatever the money was, for information on the shooting or the killing of police officer Ralph Dawes. And we get the ladder, we climb to the top, and put it right on the ceiling. We tape it all over the ceiling, about 3 or 4 of them, and we leave. So now the next time they came back, they didn't have no 10-foot ladder, so they had to really hustle to get those posters down, right? But when we get back to our quarters, I have to go down next door to the squad. I have to get some information for my paperwork that I have to do. And I go up to the squad, and Tommy's there and everybody. And Billy Cthulhu now, he sees me. And he goes, I want this guy's name. I want his shield number. Because he was going to make a civilian complaint out of me. So Tommy gets up out of his desk. He goes, no, that's not happening. Okay. So I got my information and I went off, But I was a big fan of Tommy's. He was what he did and his investigations with the mafia cops and all that.
It was amazing.
A shout out to him if he's watching. Hello, Tommy.
Shanahan, can you beat that story?
Oh.
I stayed out of Bensonhurst, okay? I had my limits, like I said.
Look at that. Look at you two there. Was that your wedding day?
That's when I was still a fan of carbohydrates, obviously.
That was Jimmy, wasn't that the Citizens Academy graduation? We were
Oh,
invited to?
absolutely.
We both instructed at the
Citizens Police
Yeah.
Academy, one of the best things the police department ever invented, because we took people steamed up, radicalized. By the time we got done with them, where's an application? How do I sign? The police. Yeah, we converted them.
So you guys, look, it's been a year since COVID, and you guys were working together, going all over the country, teaching your dog and pony show, right? You want to tell our fans what you guys teach?
What did I do? I worked with Lieutenant Jack Cambria, and it was overnight. A class that I was teaching for years, and all of a sudden it worked its way into. I worked my way into the hostage negotiation team, and if you want to talk about a pinnacle of success, and Jack, forever I owe it to you. That's it. When I retired, I started an LLC, and I call it Kesatsu Dojo, of course, common spelling. You know. KesatsuDojo.com, and I brought in Jack and a few other people I call headliners, and conflict management, and we created a curriculum and took a lot of the stuff that we did with great success in the PD, and we put the genie in our bottle. We put a label. You
know something? I think if you guys go back on tour, you should have Mark and I as like the warm up act.
Well, obviously, Bill, I need a tech man, because I don't know a modem from a scrotum. So,
let me ask you a question. Any chance that they're doing all this police reform and they want to get the clinicians out and all this other stuff, and that they're going to hire you, conflict management, to teach civilians how to go in there and de-escalate situations so they don't need the police? Wouldn't that be ironic? Wouldn't that be ironic?
I'm waiting for the phone to ring. Okay.
I'm just saying, wouldn't it be ironic?
Yeah, we'll go full circle for sure.
Considering the last thing that Jack and I did for the job, we were part of a training team that created the crisis intervention team training, with others. That was basically our last duty station, and that was essentially it was the EDP workshop that a lot of us know. John Jay College, working behind the door, and the HNT class. It was the ESU class, and I was responsible with others, kind of bringing that down to ground level with recruits and in-service personnel and newly minted supervisors, even executives, because that was the formula. So to answer your question, hey, we know how to teach cops how to deal with people. And if they want to bring in these civilians, violence interrupters, de-escalation, I'll tell you, I don't touch two things. That's, what is it? The implicit bias. I don't know anything about that. And critical race theory. Well, if they would,
you could very well be hired to get a call from one of these companies, and they say, we're going to be sending clinicians out, and we're going to be sending social workers out.
Yeah.
And we want to teach them how to de-escalate situations. So we want you to train them.
I'm in a room surrounded by books and lesson plans and notes and films. I'm available.
And we're going to pay you $10,000 a class.
More like the 6-foot hero and a couple of Dr. Peppers.
Shanahan, we're going to send you a 7-figure check, and you just decide how much to send back.
I'll call Larry David and tell him, keep your job. I'm not working for you.
Along those lines, about 3 years ago, some of you may remember, I know James does, we had a deputy chief on the job named James Shea. And James Shea is the brother of Dermot Shea, our current police commissioner. And James Shea is now the director of public safety for the Jersey City Police Department. So about 3 years ago, he calls me up. During when we were both working together, Deputy Chief Shea comes up to me and says, "Hey, Jack, I would love to get into your hostage negotiation class. I always wanted to be a negotiator. I was never afforded the opportunity. What do you think?" a one-star chief asking a lieutenant. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I know my politics. I said, Chief, I would love to have you. So he comes into the class. It's a 2-week class. There every single day. He didn't have to leave every once in a while on the phone, but then he'd go after the class. He'd go to his office and he would do his work, whatever he had to do. And he brought into the principles of negotiation that sometimes tactical assault is not your first option when it doesn't have to be. Sometimes there's no negotiations to be had. Active shooter, for example. No negotiations here. But when time does allow for that, and the philosophy that James and I always use is just because you have to stick doesn't mean you have to use it. But then again, you might have to. And ultimately, law enforcement is about the use of force. So he calls me up and he says, Jack, I've been having some problems with my my 911 call takers. They're burnt out, they're underpaid, they're underappreciated. And when people are calling in for emergencies in Jersey City, is where he is, they're getting attitude from these call takers. And as a result, they're amassing great amounts of civilian complaints. Because can you come in there and do a little program for them, de-escalation of emotions and all that? So, well, yeah, I can do that. So, I mean, I have the basic foundation already, but what I had to do is just delve into a lot of research about dispatches going bad. And I got research from across the country where dispatches were hanging up on people and, people were dying as a result of that, arguing with people on the phone. So I got all these as examples, and I did the program. He had about 60 different dispatches at the time, and call takers. And I did that over 3 different sessions, and they got nice reviews. Fast forward now to this past June of 2020, he calls me up again, and he says, Jack, listen, the mayor of Jersey City, he's looking to be proactive in getting out 1,000-person police department in Jersey City some de-escalation training. Same thing, pretty much what you did for the dispatchers. I told them what you did for us back then with the dispatchers. They told me to call you. So, okay. So I started getting involved with that, and I actually got about 500 of them done, 30 at a time. And then COVID, they had an uptick of COVID in the Jersey City Police Department, so they canceled all training at that point. So I might get started up again at one point. But I got to tell you, I work for, in addition to doing work with James, I also work for some private companies. I do stuff on my own as well. And there's a big now kind of check the box type of training, right, James, for this type of training.
What it is.
Yeah, to avoid having these cops step on what I like to call those legal liability landmines, where they step on them, blow themselves up, and in the process blow up their agencies. So I draw from my 34 years of experience of what I've seen over the years in the different ranks, where officers got themselves in trouble when it wasn't necessary, where there was an alternative approach, but they relied on their emotional impulsivity, if you will, and they just without thinking. So that's what this is pretty much all about, trying to keep cops out of trouble is what it is.
Did you guys see that video of the cops going into the domestic violence situation? And it was almost like a closed job, and then the guy opened up shooting at them?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, that could have been social workers, instead it was cops.
And what will happen if, and God forbid, that is the answer?
It's going to happen if they go to, in Harlem, they're switching to social workers.
If you know your history, and we do, there was years and years and years ago, it was then EMS, New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation. They would go on EDP jobs. They were being assaulted. That was the advent of having the police right in tandem with them, maybe in the late 50s, early 60s. So as far back as you want to go, they needed and required a police escort. And now there's this dream, this idea that we don't need the police. Instead, we need this approach. And if you look at the average cop, as Jack and I have seen, and you have seen, we have cops on this job that have more heart, more soul, more of an intuitive ability to deal with people. But the focus now is on that fringe out there of cops who we should never have hired. Right now, Jack obviously works from his lifetime in emergency service. And my baseline was my years with the housing police, first of all, and housing police PBA, where I actually had held the hand of cops who might have done the job right, but because they said something, got themselves jammed up. And those words you can't pull back. How many times cops got civilian complaints? They're locking up drug dealers, but the civilian complaint, the substance was, did you have to call me an asshole in front of my 9-year-old daughter? It was the substance. It wasn't about you locked me up. I was out there slinging rock. And
Right.
That's business. But the idea was he had a resentment to the fact that this cop used this Latin, this natural language. So the work was to really bring down the rhetoric and just focus on the technique and the spirit of good police work. The problem with what Jack and I teach and others teach, because we didn't invent this. This wasn't something that we invented over the weekend to navigate our midlife crisis. This is the stuff that
you shouldn't keep saying that you didn't invent it. We could edit that out if you want. I would say we invented this.
We did this, Jim. We did this. That's right.
Listen, what I invented was my ability to look at what great cops did and turn it into a curriculum that would get buy-in from cops that naturally are training averse. They don't like going to training because they don't like being lectured to. Instead, what I was able to do, and I'll take credit for that I was able to go into a classroom of cops who would probably rather get their teeth drilled out of their head than go to training. And they left saying thank you, because all I did was just create an environment that looked similar to what training looked like an hour or two after training, when cops retired back to the bar, started slapping back the Amstels, and started sharing tradecraft with each other. That's where you learn. And It was sad. I used to say, where were you 3 hours ago? All right, I'm not saying anything in the classroom. I said, what are you planning on doing with this stuff? I mean, I worked with cops that had more police experience under their fingernails than I'll ever have. The best thing about my job is all I did was kick off a conversation. I used the class I teach to teach the class that I teach, because I found cops were extraordinary representatives of good, solid police work. And all I had to do was put it together. Yeah, it was a little bit of showmanship, a lot of theater, about getting cops to get that we're not here to judge you. We're not here to hurt you. We're not here to cripple you. We're here to share what we know so we can all walk out of here with a message of hope.
James, one of our fans in the live chat, Duty Ron, says, I remember James Shanahan from PSA 3. I think he had the nickname Shanavan. Is that true?
I was PSA 3. No, I was a Manhattan housing cop.
You were 5 and 6, maybe, right?
Yeah, Manhattan North.
Okay.
There was a Tommy Shanahan in the housing police department. We always used to get mixed up.
Okay. Was he a heavier drinker than you?
He was a heavy Italian man.
That was the guy who used to come in and buy a few rounds, though. You never did that.
I do. I bought my way out of trouble. I knew oil and rock.
You know, James, getting to what some of the things you were talking about, there was a favorite expression in street crime and in anti-crime when you toss someone to leave the guy with a good taste in his mouth.
Okay.
If you jumped him, tossed him, he didn't have a gun, you said, buddy, I'm sorry, man. You fit the description of someone I was looking for, or I thought you might have had a gun, and you talk your way out of it. But some cops would be like, you don't like it. They curse the guy out. That's not the way to do it.
The more experience I saw, I used to teach a class for the cops that got high CCRBs. Nobody else would touch this class. Why? Because you're talking to, number one, you're talking to street cops who do police work for a living. These aren't guys who, make a living putting chlorine in the swimming pool at the police academy. Okay.
I love that.
These are guys that are doing police work, and they're getting civilian complaints. And I would think that for all of the hoopla, that these guys were getting 50 and 60 complaints. Some guys were coming in 3, 5 complaints in a year. That's pretty good numbers.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a group therapy session. And first of all, the first thing I did is thank them for their service. I know it's a big throwaway line now, but I realized that these guys got into this classroom from doing one thing and one thing only: police work. And police work is a tough job. We're in the bad news delivery business. Nobody likes to be arrested. And with all the advances that we have made in technology, we're still putting people in handcuffs no differently than we did 100 years ago. Not much has changed. There are manacles. People fight. They resist. Now everybody has a cell phone. Everybody makes baseless accusations against the police. So how do we get cops to protect themselves, as Jack said before, from getting emotional, from getting their ego kicking in, their machismo, their macho, their frustration? We talk, we listen, we communicate. We leave people better than we found them when we found them at their worst. We can't leave people better than we found them. That's idealistic. I'll leave that to the therapists who think that they're going to come, on some.
I think the violence interrupters know how to do that, James. So I don't know.
I think what they should do is they should treat these civilian complaints now, especially since they're public and you can just go online and see how many an officer has. What they should do is they should treat civilian complaints almost like the way they do fouls in basketball. You got 2 in the first half, you got to sit out now. We're going to pull you. And you pull them in, that's it. You got to sit, because you don't want these guys collecting so many within a certain amount of time. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't look good for anybody.
Well, there has to be consequences.
Just, move them out. If they're working somewhere busy, they pull the guy out that's doing the pool with the chlorine. Let him go out there for a little while. He'll get his 2 complaints and they can switch back and forth.
I agree.
Like that all over.
Yeah, but there's a whole different philosophy now. We've had guys on this show that were some most highly decorated cops on this job, like Mike Heinrichs. Mike Heinrichs has 2 combat crosses, 2 medals of valor, and 212 department citations. A guy like that, they would take him off the road right now. You're not getting your 2nd combat cross, guy. You're not getting your 2nd medal of valor. And is that right?
Yeah. Think of the experience. Think of the wisdom. Just that. I'm telling you, getting cops to open up in a classroom. And listen, I know plenty of talented instructors. I didn't come out here tonight to put my thumb in the eye of anybody who has anything to do with the administration or the maintenance of our membership. Okay, but when I think of just the experience that I've seen with cops and how they deal with people, so it was tough walking into a classroom. Now, my first couple of years of teaching, I have to admit, absolutely, it was more of a monologue. I was following an old curriculum that my career path got interrupted with this curriculum called verbal judo. That was a private program that the job bought into. It was a commercially available product. The job loves that. They love bringing in these scholars and subject matter experts from all over the country to come into the NYPD so that they could offer a concept. And our underwriters loved it because then they could check the box saying, you went to this training. And they loved it. The Poindexters down at headquarters love this stuff because now they're off the hook. Okay. So I had to change my style away from lecturing or presenting, and the showman in me or the vaudevillian in me or the theatrical in me. I was able to handle a 3 or 4 hour class, but I realized that wasn't the point of training. So there was a point in my career where I had to get away from that formula and get the cops in on it and make it more interactive, because I realized that the answers were in those cops. All of us are better than any of us. So I used to open up my class because cops would come to training a little bit. I'm not talking about recruits. I'm talking about in-service personnel. And I'm not even talking about newly minted sergeants and lieutenants, because they were in this, okay, this is what I got to do to get to the next rank. I'm talking about rank and file people, my people from my union years, not easy people to talk to. And I would open up by saying, give me one word, an adjective, a descriptive word that describes for us the type of people that you deal with on a daily basis. Now that's a ground ball. And the first answer was like Family Feud. I heard assholes. I mean, that was the #1 national word. And I said, okay, got it. What else? And cops would feed me adjectives: angry people, hostile people, obnoxious, belligerent, entitled. And then I'd kind of pick up from there because, you know me a long time. You're not going to teach my class. Okay? I might give you a taste of interaction, but that was the brink of it. Then I would pick it up. Angry people, malevolent people, vicious people, vulgar people, frightened people, demented people, deranged people, shut down, worn out, distant, angry, hostile. And that's just your coworkers, okay? We haven't gotten into the public. victims, witnesses, criminals. Just dealing with cops, dealing with each other is enough of an ambition for this job. And I think that's where, if I play this next period of my life right, that's where I'm going to be moving into. The public is a tough customer.
Wait, you said you're moving out of the nursing home? Where are you going?
You're going to see. You get into your van tonight, I'm going to be behind the wheel. I'm escaping.
James and Jack, Dr. Stephen Washkill is in our live chat, and he made a comment. He's great. He made a comment. He said implicit bias should be enhanced, not suppressed. Maybe called something else, but it's the cop's sixth sense that could be the difference between life and death.
And it is. Yeah, this kept me alive more times than I know. Just that sense.
Yeah.
I worked with cops, as I used to say in my class, who could talk a foaming at the mouth rabid dog off of a meat truck. Conversely, I've worked with cops in my career who could show up to the scene of the Blessed Nativity and split somebody's head open.
So, and escalate the situation, right? There's always the guy you're like, oh no, he's here. Get him out of here.
The seventh car on the scene was the reason why we stayed there for an hour and a half. But he's right.
Well, a shout out to the good doctor and a dear friend, and thank you for what you do, doctor.
He's a miracle worker.
Oh my God! In fact, I use the doctor's research that he allowed me to do that with his citing on it about the myths, different myths of suicide, what people believe to be true, but in fact are not. And it's a whole list, and I go through each and every one of them.
Beautiful.
And so nothing but again respect for that man as well. So I love him. So, hello,
he's we've had him on the show numerous times. I know you just mentioned suicide, and this might be a little uncomfortable, but you asked me to pull up the photo of Lydia. And if you guys want to maybe talk a little bit about Lydia right there. That was in, I think, Guantanamo Bay you went to, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was what you're looking at is a ceiling tile in the Officers Club, which we were invited to go into. And they made our logo, our Talk to Me logo, onto a ceiling tile, and we signed it. The three of us signed it. And then they put it up there. So it's all to see whoever goes into the Officers Club at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And very briefly, how that came about was we had a negotiator at the time who was on active military duty, Kevin Hanley, detective out of Staten Island at the time. And while he was there was a big uprising at the base. It was a coordinated, organized attack on the base. A group of compliant, they had three different sections of detainees. And the group of compliant detainees, where they lived in a dormitory setting, set up a coup suicide where they pretended one of the detainees was trying to hang himself. And when that was observed, 3 or 4 SRT members, their version of the SWAT team in the Navy takes care of the detainees. When they go in there, it was a big plan. They had soaked in the floor with soapy water, with urine, feces. Ugh. And when they came in, it was like the Roadrunner on an oil slick, and they all fell to the ground. They had the big fans there, and they broke off the 3 blades of the fan, and they started hacking at them with the blades like a machete, if you will. So very quickly, reinforcements got into the dormitory setting, and they took it under control quickly. But the rest of the facility, Camp Delta is what it was called, they started rioting, going out in riotous fashion, setting fires and destroying property. Enter Kevin Hanley. So he comes in, he starts negotiating with the head imam through a translator, an Arabic translator. And almost as quickly as it began, it stopped. So the commander at the time, a gentleman by the name of Harry B. Harris, who I believe now is the ambassador of Japan, U.S. ambassador to Japan, he was a 3-star admiral at the time. He went on to be a 4-star admiral. And he was so impressed with what Kevin had done. He said, Kevin, I don't know how you did that. But more importantly, how do we get our people trained in what you just did? Right. So Kevin's, the NYPD, got to call this guy Cambria. And he had one of his commanders call me up. So, of course, I had to run by then Police Commissioner Ray Kelly. And he said, yeah, let's do it. Of course, Ray Kelly, as you recall, is a former Marine Corps colonel. So a big military guy. He says,
hoorah!
Yeah, there you go. Yes, indeed.
And an ESU captain.
And an ESU captain.
Yeah.
So they said to me at the time, and I said to them, actually, something I can't do myself. When I do a class, I have a whole training team with me. Well, you can't bring too many people, but how many would you like to bring? So Lydia was right there, and that's it. And James Shanahan. So reached out to James. James, are you willing to go to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba? Absolutely. But the only problem is, if I can say it, James James didn't have a passport at the time.
Oh my God.
So talk about who you know, right? So it was the chief, a chief in counterterrorism calls up someone he knows in the State Department, and that afternoon, James had a passport, right, James?
World traveler.
Yeah, and then we went off and we did a 5-day hostage negotiation class, which was a little foreign to the military. So this was the American Joint Task Force, which made up the 5 different branches of the military. So the negotiations, it's usually something you don't hear in the same sentence when you use the term military.
Right.
And as Jim likes to say, we don't negotiate. We just drop them. Right, James?
Yeah. Oh, we just make it.
Yeah. But I got to tell you, folks, that they embraced the training. And at the end of it, their final exam was a 5-minute speech in front of the class. And they could talk pretty much about anything they wanted to. If they had some incidents about hostage negotiations, preferably. And I'll talk about this picture in just a second, please. But one of the ensigns in the Navy gets up and he says, about 5 years earlier, his brother, who had mental health issues, was behind the door and came from a very small rural town somewhere in the South. And the police came, and they weren't really trained as negotiators, and they were making jokes with him, and never addressing his issues of what is so bad that deserves a death sentence that you're threatening. And they're making jokes. Come on, buddy, let's go out and have a beer. It's bullshit. And
Jack, that's a no in hostage negotiation, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we get into active listening and trying to understand why are you there? What is so bad? Something called emotional labeling and active listening skills that we are trained in as negotiators by trying to identify what the emotion is. That sounds pretty sad, pretty bad, huh? What makes you so sad? And we get him talking about it, is what it is. But he says he believed that the NYPD hostage negotiation team, after that week of training, was there at the other side of the door with his brother, that maybe, just maybe, his brother might be alive today.
Right.
Now, Bill, can you go back to that picture real fast and just show James?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to talk about that real quick.
Hey, before you do that, let's give a shout out, Bill. We got a couple of super chats here.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen Washkull gave us $50. Thank you, Doc.
Oh,
Thanks
my
a lot,
gosh.
And we got Michael
Marculici.
He gave $5 in the super chat. So thank you very much.
And Scotty Wagner also.
Oh, Scotty Wagner. Oh,
yes,
Scott. Oh, Scott. Scott was a master negotiator, Scott. I love Scott. I miss him.
Scott's a frequent flyer here.
Oh, my gosh. Shout out to you, Scott. So this picture here, if I could just comment quickly. So what we try to do is replicate their environment when we do role playing. And this is, of course, in Guantanamo Bay. And James was portraying a Lieutenant JG in the Navy who just got a Dear John letter. I got a new boyfriend. Nice to know you. Have a great life. So in the role, James starts drinking. He's got his 9mm in his hand, and he's threatening suicide. So there was one particular individual. He's in the picture. He's leaning forward with the short hair. Well, they all have short hair. But in any case, he was a captain in the Navy, and he was head of the SRT team. And in civilian life, he was a Baltimore City SWAT team officer, police officer. So he had the mindset of being all SWAT. And every once in a while, always very respectful, no doubt. But every once in a while, he'd give out a little comment, or maybe if you just get the SWAT team there,
Enough.
So I targeted this guy early on, So when we did this first role play, I said to him, Captain, would you mind helping us out with the role play? So he wanted really nothing to do with it, but all eyes are upon him, so he gets up. And when he starts negotiating with James, and the reason I'm telling the story, he was so compassionate and empathetic and asking the right type of questions. So he bought into the training as well, that James had to respond to him in a positive way and finally open that door to come on out. Let me tell you this about James as a role player. He's a professional trainer. He's not going to give it up to you unless you earn it.
Right.
And the captain earned it. So I think the captain walked away that day, maybe learning a little bit more about himself. That, again, just because you have that stick, doesn't mean you have to use it in every instance.
No, absolutely not. 12-Step Woman, thank you so much for the $9.99 sticker. And Ryan Investigative Group, thank you for the $5 super sticker. You guys are keeping us in business. Thank you so much. For you guys that don't know Jack Cambria was the guru of hostage negotiation in New York City for lots of years. He picked up the ball. Who was your predecessor, Jack?
So it was Lieutenant Hugh McGowan, also a doctor.
Dr. Hugh McGowan, right.
PhD in criminal justice.
But I just want to tell everyone, he's been on Blue Bloods, I think, like 5 times. So he's very much in demand, and he's a pretty sexy guy. I'm sorry that Shanahan isn't as sexy as Cambria, but they work well together.
Do I look good for my age? Do I look good for my age?
You look great.
Now
that you got
7 years old, okay? I had a rough life. Let me tell you.
I found James at a meeting in Dr. Maria Volpe's office in John Jay College, and that had to be 2002. I took over the team in 2001, and I met James at a meeting, and I was so impressed with him that I latched onto him at that time, and I never let go. And I said, James, you have to help me. You have to be one of my trainers for the hostage negotiation team. And he bought into that as well, and we became compadres ever since, the best of the best. So
Jack, I also taught at CIC, and my class was it was a lot of comedy involved. I'll put it that way. But when they heard your credentials, they were like, "Oh, this guy's from homicide." It's like I didn't come from the, changing the chlorine in the swimming pool, as James would say. But he used to come in and just listen for a while to laugh. I was like, who is that guy? He's one of my fans now.
Oh my gosh. In fact, a friend of mine was watching tonight. A shout out to Kevin Rafferty. Was one of my partners in the 72 precinct. We were doing that community policing program, and he reached out to me this afternoon and said, "All right, so you're going to be on and James Shanahan." So he remembers you. He was one of our negotiators as well. So he remembers you very well, James. We shout out.
Run.
Hey, James is a rock star in the instructor business. He really is.
And Ray Kelly said that to him. Remember, James? Ray Kelly told you this guy's a rock star. Yeah.
Hey, give me first grade then.
Police Officer Shanahan went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Detective Shanahan came back. So I owe that to Jack and Lydia, who advocated for me, and of course, Commissioner Ray Kelly. That trip to Gitmo was more than just going down and helping out the military. It was really a life-affirming moment. And to be able to humanize that military operation in Gitmo, very similar to what our cops deal with. We're in a thankless business. We deal with people that nobody can deal with, very challenging. It wears on you. It gets very personal. We talk about you have this thick skin. The best thing about what I learned from teaching, what Jack opened that door for, we call it conflict management. I mentioned verbal judo. I can't without. It was a substantial moment. But that was like, I put my foot in that. That helped me over the wall. But basically, what we talked about was how to deal with people skills. It's the thing that we do 98% of the time as cops, is just dealing with people, meeting them where they are and bringing them to where we need them to be, leaving them to think they got the credit for it. So we have to teach ego deflation. We have to be ethical, meaning we have to be the right guys. And it's always the gateway is what? Empathy. It's ethics, empathy, ego deflation. And just to get back to Lydia Martinez, who this last month is the anniversary of 14 years, Lydia showed me how to teach. And she was, as far as I'm concerned, if I had a sister on this job, her name would have been Lydia Martinez. She was brilliant. And a couple of times I caught Lydia talking about people behind their backs. And the only difference was it was always positive, unlike me. Lydia always said wonderful things about people behind their back. My motto is, if you want to know what people say about you behind your back, listen to how they talk about other people behind their backs.
Right, right.
When you leave the room, they go in on you. Cops can be tough. Cops can be rough to communicate with. There's this big facade. I'm guilty of it. But the idea is, by humanizing the condition, by getting into active listening skills, engagement strategies, getting people to get that now that you're here, everything is going to get a little bit better. That is the magic. That's the genie in the bottle. And as I said in my opening, or you said in my opening, I mean, 36 and a half years in the job. There's no way in the world I would have done 36 and a half years on this job had I not been connected to Jack and this curriculum and this mission to get cops a little bit better at what they're already good at. And when I hear people speak disparagingly about the police as a group, I mean, there's not enough high blood pressure medication in this house right now for me to use. And just getting the message out that cops need help at helping people. And one final thing I'll say is that, we're taught almost instantly when we come on the job, don't take this job home with you. And that's pretty good advice. The training that we were able to do, the training that I aligned myself with, and the teams of trainers that I worked with, and I learned from every one of them. It just made me better. This was the training that you could take home with you to make your own personal life with your family, your children, your spouse, your ex-spouse, your parents, if you still, everybody can get better at being around you once you do this. And that's the God's honest truth. That's not an exaggeration. And that's certainly not a punchline. That's the truth.
Rochella Pranzo, thank you for the $5 super chat. Aaron Rodriguez, thank you for the $19.99 super chat. You guys are really unbelievable to us. Thank you so much for the support. These guys really have, and I don't think you mentioned that Lydia Martinez took her own life, and that was one of the reasons I think that you guys wanted to sort of salute this show to her and dedicate this show to her because she was a tremendous human being.
She was born on April 19th, 57, and she passed on February 27th, 2007. That was Lydia Martinez. She was wonderful.
Lydia had no casual friends. If Lydia took you on as a friend, she was your friend. And Lydia was in my office 3 times a week saying, Jack, you got to put this person on the hostage negotiation team. And she'd give me applications, give the individual an application, and she'd bring it back to me. And of course, if Lydia's name was on it, then it was a done deal. I didn't even need to get interviewed. I did that just for formality purposes. But Lydia was... She cared about people. She understood people, and she taught me so much about about life. And Lydia taught me. Jim and I were just talking about this yesterday. Lydia gave me an adage, and it's Buddhist in its philosophy. But she said to me, whenever you have a problem with somebody, that you should look to embrace the difficult people of the world, because ultimately they become your greatest teachers, do they not? So get that and try to let them be your teacher by teaching you strategies of how to manage that difficult person and bring them out to your side. Like James said earlier, leaving them in a better place than when you first found them. Yeah. So we kiss Lydia.
Oh, I think she was great. I mean, I hit a couple of rough patches in my career. I had several of them. I mean, there was my life beforehand and PBA and a few things, and then my training life. At one point, I said to Lydia, "What should I do?" And she says, "Stick around." I mean, I had my 20 in. I could have went. I mean, we all have potential. There was 1.5 million things I could have done with my life. I mean, the circus was calling me. Lydia simply said to me, "Stick around. It's not going to get better, but you are."
Oh, wow, that's a great thing.
Because the job, the politics, the nonsense, the backbiting, the insanity.
Yeah,
that's everywhere. Leaving this job, you're not getting away from that by leaving this job, and I'm grateful that I stayed. But so much of what I did when I stayed came from my association with her and several other fine souls on this job, and they taught me how to teach cops how to be good. The problem with a lot of this training is it gets a bad name because it's like people they disparage it and they kind of condescend to it by thinking it's, oh, you're a Boy Scout. I mean, I can't get my head around that like, unless you're a gritty kind of a rough kind of a raspy cop, the cop that has that grace is seen almost as a liability, and I completely disagree with that. I mean, perps respond very well to professional cops, and let me tell you, no perp is impressed with our characterization of movie roles that we play in playing gangsters and tough guys. They see right through it. So Lydia gave me a lot of help in restoring my place on this job. And I owe it to her.
You know, James, one of the things that, and what you guys teach, the de-escalation of force, it's absolutely necessary and a great thing. But I don't like when like a good cop gets labeled a bad cop because he uses force and the force goes wrong. That doesn't make him Pantaleo, for example.
Yeah.
You know,
Good example.
Pantaleo had no intention of killing Eric Garner whatsoever, and Pantaleo was an excellent cop. He's the cop I wanted with me.
Right.
I wanted him in anti-crime. I wanted Pantaleo with me, but he was labeled by the media and everyone else. He's a bad cop. No, he was not a bad cop. He was put in a bad situation, and maybe could have been handled a little bit differently, maybe. But you know, he was challenged. The guy, I'm not going today, guys. Do whatever you got to do. You know.
No stranger to this department, as we say. I mean,
right. I believe he had 33 prior arrests.
What bothers me is when the media or people who believe they can kind of superimpose their will and their life onto ours, they talk about non-lethal alternatives. Take it from me, firsthand. Everything has a potential for lethality. Okay, everything. There's no such thing as non-lethal. Less than lethal.
Right.
But nothing is non-lethal. Case in point, I had an ex-wife try to kill me with a pillow one night. Okay, so it was all lethal, not necessarily, but in her hands, absolutely they were. So I can pass that on to my class. Okay, anecdotally.
But you know, it's so hard these days for these cops out there because, you know, as we all know, police work can get ugly and look ugly, and the use of force is never an attractive thing to look at. You know,
policing is not pleasing. It's not pleasing to look at, and we're not here to please people. Okay, we live in a culture now where everybody wants to be liked. I mean, it's almost epidemic about being liked. I tell my cops, people don't have to like you. They don't have to like you. They won't like you. You represent authority in a culture that's all about challenging authority. So inherently, you're in the bad news delivery business. People don't have to trust. People don't have to like you, but they have to trust you.
Right.
That's
prior to May 25th, 2020, and that's the day that Derek Chauvin put his knee on George Floyd's neck.
Correct.
Prior to that date, society, the courts even, would tend to give you police officers the benefit of the doubt if it was close. But from that point on, that changed policing for officers as officers once knew it forever. So no longer will they now get the benefit of the doubt from anyone. So they have to either accept that and change their approach to policing, of course, always being ever vigilant of their safety first, and then and just accept it. Because if they do not, they're going to have a very hard rest of their career, 20 years or 30 years, whatever it might be. And now it might change at one point down the road. We've seen in the past, just in New York City alone, we've had the Eric Garner protest. Speaking of Eric Garner, we all remember those. We had the Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street, yeah.
There you go. Thank you, Bill. Yeah. All that. And where police officers were getting assaulted on the Brooklyn Bridge or wherever they were able to do that. And then, time passed and things got a little bit better. And then something else always comes along to bring it up again. So But officers have to protect themselves. They have families that depend on them, and they can't rely on their emotional impulsivity, and they have to take a step back to think, is this the right response?
Right.
So whenever I think we make a decision, we must consider its beginning, its middle, and its ending. And once implemented, how will that decision impact on your life, the life of your family, and the reputation of your agency? So that's the little thought process into it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like what bothers me in it when it shows that it's a national almost movement against the police is when the police are involved in a situation where deadly physical force is 100% authorized, and they use it and kill the perp, and then there's riots. Like, oh, what were they supposed to do? Take the lead and just not return fire? And that's where I think people don't understand the whole theory of justification. They do not understand justification whatsoever, or nor do they want to understand it.
Yeah. And Bill, a lot of the states already have done so, and I think New York State is looking to move towards it as well, is removing the implied indemnification, immunity from officers when they would be indemnified if they acted within the scope of their employment.
Right.
But now you're seeing a lot of states, as part of this defund the police movement, is now being eliminated, and that's very scary for police officers. Yeah.
I could never have done my job. None of us could have done our job without knowing that as long as I did it right, it would be all right. The outcome could be wrong, but if I did it right, how could I have? Impossible.
Well, James, what you're referring to is your intent. And something, you can kill someone and be totally justified. It's your intent. What was your intent? And justification comes into play there. Right. But all that whole thing, I used to call it the 4 culpable mental states of mind: reckless, intentional, criminally negligent, and knowingly. Right. I used to teach that when I was once a college professor. But people don't understand the law, so they have no idea.
It's just emotion. It's all emotion, pure emotion. And I use that in my class. I said, I'm going to use the F word. And the F word is feelings. Okay. So it's all about how people feel. And
yes,
that is a big barrier towards people seeing rationality. It's how they feel. It's difficult. No question.
Very difficult. Duty Ron, thank you so much for that $10 super chat. He shouted out, he said, fantastic guest tonight, Lieutenant Jack Cambria and Detective James Shanahan. Thank you for your service on our job. You make us proud, along with all my retired brothers and sisters. And if you guys were Marines, I'd say, hoorah, but you're not. So,
Lori Ortiz, today, me and my partner would have been arrested for murder if the civilians weren't sitting on top of the perp causing his death. She posted that. I guess she's on the job. Something happened with her today.
No. She's talking about if it happened today. I think she was formerly on the job. I think what she's referring to is restraint asphyxia, which can happen. But that's one of the reasons they enacted the diaphragm law, which is a very, very scary law that really puts the cops in a lot of danger when making an arrest.
Right. Well, they didn't put anything in place of it. They just took that out, and then what are you left with? So there's this gap in tactics and methods.
Yeah, it's like if you're a surgeon, the people that are going to change the rules to surgery are going to be other doctors.
Right.
But if you're a cop, the people that are going to change the rules of policing are going to be politicians who may or may not know anything whatsoever about policing. Yeah. And they're so arrogant that they don't poll academics. They don't poll police executives. Yeah. They don't poll attorneys. They just make these decisions on their own with no knowledge whatsoever.
It's all about their base. It's all about getting votes. And
hey, Bill, let me give a shout out to Sandra Gabriela Rivera. She's a fan of the show. She listens to us. She does a 9-mile walk every day.
Oh, wow.
She's a cancer survivor.
God bless her.
Wow.
And she's lost over 100 pounds.
There you go.
And she says she listens to us every day. And I told her I'd give her a shout out. And I also said thank you. And I said I hope you never get a car.
Oh, because then she won't listen to us anymore. Or what?
Because she walks 9 miles a day.
Oh, okay.
But who knows where she's? Well, that's her exercise that she's doing. But she's a big fan of the show, and she's getting through our library. And I promised her I'd give her name out.
And she also just gave us a $14.99 super chat, which is another
really
good. Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Sandra.
Am I the only ones looking at that? You know,
I didn't see her name. I've seen her, but I didn't see her name.
Oh, okay.
Now it just so happened that I mentioned her and she popped up. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you so much. You know, so you guys, I mean, you have your work cut out for you. My prediction in 2021, once this whole virus thing, everyone gets vaccinated, you guys are going to be busy as hell. They're going to be calling you all across the nation.
Okay.
And, you know, after this trial of Officer Chauvin in Minneapolis, God knows what's going to happen. And it's very sad because if the mob doesn't get the verdict that they want, they're going to burn this country down again. And it's so disturbing because, you know, they don't stop them from doing stuff like that. You know, they just let them vent, you know, and that's disturbing to me, you know.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, though.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Let's talk about the training because
okay.
What is it? We all did. All four of us came from a rich fundamental background in policing, and fundamental police training was lecture based. We know that. We had a lot of talented trainers in the job, and it was lecture based training. And I credit a frequent guest on your program as well, Bill, Chief Anamone.
Oh, he's the best, man. He's the best.
Chief Anamone, if this was acting, he gave me my start. Okay, Chief Anamone was so tired of hearing cops that he was challenging them on why they did what they did, that their throwaway line was, well, that's what I learned at the police academy. And finally, he heard that like for the 99th time and just exploded and wanted to change how cops were being trained. And I remember vividly, this program, I believe it was 1994. Yeah. I was still in housing. The merger was in 95. So yeah, 94, they came out with Top Cops. It was really, really puffy. Okay. They pulled in street cops from all over the job, and they were talking about evidence and collaring and methods and techniques. Real hands-on kind of a judo school for police work where you got sweated up. And that transitioned into a thing called in-service tactical training. And this was after the merge. And they brought in some of the top cops trainers, blended them in with police academy instructors. But the idea was, it was about, they wanted cops that were in central booking just a few days before, not in a training administrative capacity that many years. And it was not lecture-based training, but role-play scenario training. And if you and I know anything about role-play scenario training, the tendency in industrial role-play scenario training, not just the NYPD, is a lot of times role-play scenario training can be campy, it can be hammed up, it can be farcical, it could be the game of gotcha. So a lot of times, not only does training get a bad name, but role-play scenario, cops are embarrassed, they're self-conscious, they're made fun of. And here we are teaching how to deal with mental illness and disorders. And we're trying to demystify mental illness. So it was very, very important that we got the right people on board. And I was grateful. I was grateful that I got part of that. ESU and HNT, we mentioned Dr. Hugh McGowan, then the lieutenant in charge of HNT. They had this program up at John Jay exclusively. It was, again, top shelf blue ribbon training, ESU and HNT, where college professors who were licensed clinicians, psychologists, would feature the academic or the core clinical underpinning of the program. Then they had police trainers who had that gift of gab and that ability. And then they hired professional actors. That was the missing ingredient. Professional actors, not just people that could, get up there and play at. But go into character, stay in character, and really hand in an authentic portrayal, not just of a madman or a volatile, violent, vulgar character, but really deeply wounded human beings. And that's the training that worked. That's the training I got my arms around. And as an actor, it was the greatest. And I was able to portray some seriously deep characters. And to have a guy like Jack Cambria coaching the students through, we really found the magic formula. Everybody worked. All of us were better than any of us. And in my opinion, if there is a way forward for us, that's going to be it. It's going to be a real, the nexus between credibility and creativity is going to be the answer. And a lot of it is anecdotal, but it's based on experience, not on theory. And theory has a point or a place in it, but it's really about getting those cops up on their feet, working them through their range of emotion, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and it's in a safe environment. That's why I stuck around.
And what we would teach, James and I, were not only managing the EDP, the most disturbed individual, on the other side of the door, but also the EDP on the outside of the door. So we all know what chaos means, right? Of course we do. Chaos. Chief has arrived on scene.
Yeah.
Chaos, right? And James would play the duty. Started as a duty captain in full uniform, full regalia, and then he promoted himself to inspector.
Of course.
And James, why don't you pick it up from this point on a Friday afternoon?
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Please.
I think James and I were talking about this a couple of days or a week ago. We said it would be funny when you're in the academy and all these people would be going, "The chief is 5 minutes away. The chief is in the building." We'd be like, "Are they kidding? Are they actually kidding?" It's like he's not Elvis. He's a chief, big deal, right?
Oh my gosh! Oh my
and all
gosh!
the academy people were like, "The chief is now in the building."
Oh my God! But just to set James up on a Friday afternoon after we did our training, it was a 2-week training curriculum, and at the last Friday of the 10th day of training, these guys, all right, now we love HNT and ESU, and let's get out of here. And all of a sudden, James, please.
A few of them had a little, late lunch, if you know what I mean. A
liquid lunch.
This is the job we came on. Okay, let's.
That's right.
I would show up in, as Jack says, full uniform. I mean, I was auditioning for that exact time. I was auditioning for Third Watch, so it was really convenient that I had the uniform and all. And I would show up like the bull in the chamber, and I would eclipse the scenario. We have these hardworking ESU and or HNT up on a door, and they had a door frame. You had the actors behind the door playing out a floridly psychotic individual, and these cops were getting some good traction. At that exact moment, I would come in and attack whoever the boss was, and I was the egomaniac with an inferiority complex, and I would just give the sergeant the time of his life in terms of batting him around emotionally. Do this, do that. I want those cars moved. Where are you? How come he's there? How come? I would micromanage and incinerate this poor supervisor and watch his team trying to play rodeo clown and getting and the cops were up on the door, and the ones that might have had an adult beverage with their cheeseburger, they're stuffing their mouth with Dentine. They
think he's a real boss.
They think I'm a real captain. I came in with a radio, and they're like, "How you doing, Captain?" It was hysterical.
One quick anecdote. So James just mentioned, part of the routine was James would, "Hey, Sergeant, those cars, I want them to move right now." Well, I actually wrote that into the script because that actually happened to me.
Yes, life. Here we go.
So I was a sergeant in ESU, and we had a warrant. It was in Coney Island, and we were lined up in the door. So I'm heading up the team, as a supervisor, and I have 8 officers with me. We call it the stack, And we're waiting for the word to go in. There's supposed to be a robbery that took place a couple days before, armed robbery with a gun. The detectives track him down to this particular apartment. They get a search warrant, arrest warrant. And we're on the door waiting for the go ahead to go through the door. And as we're waiting, Chief Ali, the chief of detectives at the time, who I happen to like very much.
Yeah, I liked Ali too.
Yeah. He comes over to me and goes, "Hey, Sarge, get all your ESU trucks in front of the building. Have them move right now." So I'm looking at him. Is he serious? Because I'm not going to say this to Chief Ali, right? So I give him a high ball. I said, "Whatever you say, Chief, I have to take somebody off the stack to go gather up all the keys from all the ESU officers, move all the vehicles, the REPs we call them, and took 15 minutes, maybe more. And finally he comes back, he gets back in line, got his gun back in his hand, and finally we get the go-ahead to go through the door. We pound the door, we go in, we get our bad guy. One in custody, bring him out. Chief Ali now comes over to us and goes, "Hey, Sarge, tell you guys they did a good job." I said, "Chief, thank you very much." And I couldn't resist. And so, by the way, Chief, as he starts to walk away, I said, "I was sure to get those REPs moved for you." And he stops in mid-track. He looks at me and he says, "Sarge, that was for you. In case I had to get an ambulance in here, one of your guys got hurt."
Yeah.
Talk about taking the wind out of my sail real fast. I said,
Absolutely. You know, I loved using the authority of a chief to order a unit to do something. And I remember he told me, he goes, "Have Harbor come by the Willis Avenue Bridge, have them dive right there and search for a knife." Right? So it was a double murder. So I call Harbor, they're cursing at me. I said, "Oh, by the way, that's authority of Chief Ali, the chief of detectives." You can hear them. They were so pissed, you know.
I know.
Oh, yeah, they did it. They did it. They didn't want to do it, but they were pissed, man.
He was great. He was a tough guy, but he was great.
He was a good guy. I like that.
Hey, why don't we read the commercial, man? We didn't do it yet.
You got to read it. I don't know what. I know it's hot. I know it's hot sauce, but I don't.
You want to?
I forgot to put the.
Okay, so just everybody, so we know this. Pretend like we're doing the commercial break. We are sponsored by the best hot sauce in the world. It's called Silk City Hot Sauce, Lieutenant. And you can find it at silkcityhotsauce.com. It's all made with all natural ingredients and locally grown peppers. They have a lot of fancy flavors. The artwork's incredible. And if you want to get some and get a 15% discount on it, you go to Silk City Hot Sauce and put in OTC, where it says coupon code OTC. You get a 15% discount. Trust me, you'll like it. If you like hot sauce, you're going to be in love. All right, back to the show.
I am there. Okay.
How is that as opposed to Shanahan? Looks like he's I don't know. He's doing an exorcism or something. I'm not sure.
I talk with my hands. Not bad for an Irishman.
No, that's good. That's you gotta emote. You gotta show the emotion. You know.
That's funny. That is funny.
You got time for one of my? I don't call them war stories. I don't call them war stories. I call them.
All right, give us one of closing out. Give us.
Yeah, this is actually we're at an hour and 12. Give you one more war story.
Webster houses up on the door. Woman barricaded EDP. Found her son's stash of drugs. Got his gun in her hand. She's behind the door. She's throwing flammable liquids around, threatening to set the apartment on fire. She's drunk. Her boyfriend is up on the door. He's drunk. The two of them back and forth. Every time we put the boyfriend up on the door as a third-party intermediary, which may be a questionable tactic, she calms down. The minute we pull him off the door, she accelerates. And this was frustrating. We had ESU stacked up, and it's very frustrating. We put a vest on her boyfriend and a young cop on the stack, a young Spanish cop. I only say Spanish because it was Hispanic. He's looking at me, and he's waving to me. And I realize he recognizes me from training. Okay, fine. I am the Freddie Mercury of police training.
I love that.
And so he calls me over, and he says, "You're Shanahan. You do the training?" I go, "Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Let's He says, "I can imitate this guy you have on the door. He sounds just like my uncle. I know exactly where in Puerto Rico he's from. I could imitate him. Check in with the incident commander. That's what Jack taught me. The incident commander is in charge. We get this young cop up on the door, and he is swearing and professing his love to this woman in pitch perfect cadence and voice. Sounds exactly like the boyfriend. Sure enough, de-escalates her completely. Now we have to figure, let's get the boyfriend back up on the door because she's going to surrender. They take the ballistic protection off the door opens up, and we were united. Why? The creativity that cops have, that ability for cops on the fly. That was a tricky, dangerous, high-risk situation, but because this cop was able to figure out how to figure it out. His story. Cops are brilliant, and I love cops. And I even love people who don't like cops, because I think if we do good police work long enough, more people are going to come around to seeing that a lot of the myths and disparaging comments about policing is really, it's not as you think it is.
Well, what's that expression? The emptiest drum makes the loudest noise. Is that the expression?
Empty tin can makes the most noise.
Oh, drum too.
No,
get an empty barrel like they used to make the fires on.
I learned it from the nuns in Catholic school. Empty tin can. They always say that the empty tin can makes the most noise.
And that's true, because there's a lot of people that do like cops. There's a lot of people that support us, but they don't get heard. We hear the, as they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
There you go. Hey, before we tune out, I just want to say to Lieutenant that when I used to go up to 1PP, I always looked forward to going into your office. I don't know why. I just have a radar for special people. Well, you used to speak at our homicide course, and I used to coordinate it. I
remember that, yes.
Yeah, and it was always a great lecture. People always looked forward to hearing you speak. But it was even more than that. I don't know why. I just gravitate towards to you, and I wanted to say hello all the time. And James Shanahan as well. We met during the training, and I always gravitate to special people. The only person I ever messed up with was Bill, but James, you pulled me into. You mentioned the CIT training. We did it. I was there for 5 years or better. And it was probably I've been acting since I was 26 years old. So for 25 years. Okay. And, I had a chance to work out every single week, a couple of times there. And I did different characters, and it was more fun. And I always said this one thing. I'd say, I don't care what movie set I'm on. It's going to be in my contract that on Thursdays I got to be at the academy doing Suicide Cop.
And you did a beautiful job. You're so many people. I owe so much to so many people who took that responsibility and brought that.
It was so much fun. That was so much. I loved it, man. I was getting paid good money, and I'll tell you, man, I never want to say I would have did it for free, because I wouldn't have. But
hey, you got to make a living, right?
Bill, what do you got?
No, something. Again, I get so repetitive when I say this every show, but one of the greatest experience of doing this show is the great people we get to meet and the great people we get to have on the show. And I met great cops while I was working, great detectives, great bosses. And it's good to meet some people from other parts of the city and stuff too. I was a Manhattan North guy my whole career, and I'm meeting guys from Brooklyn. I'm meeting guys from all over, people messaging us, asking to come on the show. And the people we've had on the show, we should, if I could fit behind me a hall of fame of all the great people we've had on the show, let me tell you something, you would be privileged to be in the company of the people that have been on this show.
Yeah, that's true.
Amazing guest.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
You're doing great work, both of you.
Well, something, we hope that our show helps cops that are on the job right now. Realizing that there's hope, and that, it always comes full circle. And this is still a good job. Hopefully the leaders of this job will back the cops more than they do now. I can just be a little critical with that now. I think they take it on the chin too much from these politicians. I can't imagine Anna Moan's sitting among the city council now and taking some of the shit that the bosses on this job take now. Anna Moan would definitely hit them with a few expletive deletives, you know?
Hey, before we go, Sandra Rivera, is there going to be a link where we can start the process to book some of these training here in Charlotte, because he is literally right up the street? So, Sandra, she's in Charlotte too. You might see her walking around her 9-mile walk, but she wants to know about training. So, can you tell us to the website or someplace?
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. I that almost went over my head. I call my company Kesatsu Dojo. The word Kesatsu in Japanese, you can see I'm a bit of an aficionado. Kesatsu means police. It's spelled Keisatsu, Dojo, Dojo. The word Kesatsu Dojo. Dojo is generally a school or a place of the way, and a richer, deeper meaning for the word Kesatsu in addition to police.
James, could you spell it slowly? I'm going to put it in the chat.
Keisatsu,
Okay.
Dojo.com. KesatsuDojo.com.
Yeah, common spelling, James.
That's why, yeah.
I just put it in the chat, so they'll have it.
The good thing about Japanese is it's pronounced exactly as it's spelled. So it's I speak Japanese, as you know.
No, that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool.
You can understand me. That's the.
Well, gentlemen,
I'm available. Jack, myself, we put together a nice collection of artisans and clinicians, and we carry a strong message, and our message is one of hope. So thank you for letting me come out here. And,
you guys are going to be very busy shortly. As soon as this virus we reach herd immunity, you guys are going to be all over the damn country. I can guarantee that, you know.
You know, I go through my phone. I see a lot of names of a lot of great people that I've had the joy of knowing. So my plan, my dream is to put training together and make the concert for Bangladesh and Live Aid look like a okay. So a lot of talent out here. So
that's great.
Folks are going to be getting a phone call from old Shani. Okay.
And folks out there, if you like this show, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Just hit the subscribe button on YouTube. And also, we have a Patreon. We have 3 tiers for $7 a month. What is $7 a month again? You're the bucket. $9 a month. You can polish my rack. And for $11 a month, you can dip any body part you want in butter. All right. And you get to get all of our material on our Patreon, and it's www.patreon.com/policeoffthecuff. You won't be sorry.
You know what? I got this thing. I got a patch and I think a coin. I still haven't opened the pack from Terry. He's from Tennessee, I think. We'll talk more about him on the next show. I didn't open it up, that's why. But I just wanted to say thank you. I received it today. If you're out there, Terry, and we'll be sending you a mug. I promised him a mug because that's what we do here. And we're gonna start out with some more. We're gonna get some more merch, some shirts, some hats, and we're gonna.
You notice we made the mistake with our merchandise of having to mail it ourselves. Oh my God, what a pain in the ass that is. We're gonna try to get someone that will handle everything. You know, so when we get
Sergeant,
yeah.
Thanks for coming on, gentlemen. I really
you guys are the best, and just promise us one thing: you'll come back.
Oh, big honor, yes.
Because I know you're going to travel the world, and you're going to come back with more stories, more jokes, more funny. You know.
Yeah, if you want to pitch anything, you know, you plug something, you got to whatever it is. You're always welcome on the show.
I'd like to take both of you with us when we go out on the road.
Hey, let's do it. Bill and I are going to take our show on the road. We're in the middle of writing something that we can go do lectures on.
Oh, goodness.
You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to convince Bill.
Oh, keep us posted on that, yeah.
But, you know, he's up there in the palatial estates. He's got the pool in the summer. He goes skiing up there. He doesn't want to leave his house.
Oh, my God. I feel like I haven't left my house for a year during this whole COVID thing, you know. I got my first shot. I get my second one on the 20th, and then I'll feel a little more, confident to go around the world a little bit, you know.
I'm gonna get my shot. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting till Bill gets his second shot, and I'm gonna give him.
If
If he's still alive, I'm gonna go.
Yeah. So,
All right,
guys,
thanks a lot, man.
thank you so much. And to all our
Thank
fans
you.
watching, good night.
Good night, everyone.
Very much.
Good night.